The shrill sound of medical machines was the first thing Daisy Williams heard when she opened her eyes. The fluorescent hospital light seemed to pierce directly through her brain, making her blink several times until she could focus on the reality around her. Tubes and wires connected to her arm, the unmistakable smell of disinfectant in the air, and a throbbing headache that seemed to echo like a drum. Where am I?" she murmured, trying to sit up in the hospital bed. "Hey, easy there, sweetheart. You're at Portland General Hospital." The voice came from a man in the bed next to her. Daisy turned her face and saw a dark-haired guy with messy hair and a bandage on his forehead, watching her with a concerned expression. "How are you feeling?" There was something familiar about those brown eyes, but Daisy couldn't identify what. I don't know. My head is all mixed up." "Who are you?" The man looked at her with surprise. "What do you mean, who am I?" "Daisy, it's me, Ryan. You're—" He hesitated, running his hand through his hair. "Sorry, my memory is also kind of scrambled. This accident left us pretty confused." "Accident?" Daisy tried to remember, but it was like trying to grab smoke. Fragments of images flashed through her mind. Rain, headlights, the sound of brakes. Were we together? Before Ryan could answer, a nurse entered the room carrying 2 clipboards. She was a pleasant middle-aged woman with a warm smile. "Oh, good. You're both finally awake," she said, approaching them. "I'm Nurse Patricia. You two gave us quite a scare. 3 days unconscious after that terrible accident on Highway 26. 3 days? Ryan sat up in bed, alarmed. Yes, but don't worry. Dr. Harrison said it's normal to have some mental confusion after a concussion like yours. Patricia checked both their monitors. The important thing is that you're okay. Your family has been notified and— Family? Daisy interrupted, feeling a strange emptiness. I don't remember any family. Patricia consulted her clipboard. Well, according to our records, you only have each other anyway. Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt married for 5 years, no children, living on Oak Street, 1247. She smiled sweetly. It's understandable that you're confused. Head trauma can cause temporary amnesia, but usually memory returns gradually. Daisy and Ryan looked at each other, trying to process the information. Vanderbilt? They were married. 5 years? Ryan repeated, as if testing the words. That's right, dear. Patricia adjusted his pillow lovingly. Look, we found this in your belongings. She handed a wallet to Ryan. Maybe it'll help refresh your memory. Ryan opened the wallet with trembling fingers. There was his driver's license, Ryan James Vanderbilt, 27 years old. And right behind it, a photo of him and Daisy embracing in front of what looked like their house, both smiling radiantly. She was wearing a yellow summer dress, and he wore a light blue shirt. Wow, Daisy sighed, taking the photo. We look happy. Very happy, Ryan agreed, and for an instant, something warm and familiar passed through his chest as he looked at her. Patricia checked Daisy's medications. The doctor said memory should return gradually. Sometimes certain situations or objects can trigger memories. For now, the important thing is to rest and support each other. She winked. 5 years of marriage don't just disappear that easily, right? When the nurse left, the room fell silent. Daisy studied the photo, trying to find some memory of that moment. Ryan watched her, trying to understand why he felt so protective of this woman who, somehow, he couldn't remember completely, but whom his heart insisted on knowing. So, Daisy broke the silence. We're married. Seems like it. Ryan gave a half smile. Sorry if I'm not being the most attentive husband. Kind of hard to be romantic when you don't remember your own wife. Daisy laughed, a melodious sound that made something inside Ryan light up. Hey, we're in the same boat. But, she looked at the photo again. I feel like, I don't know, like there's something here. She pointed to her heart. I feel that too, Ryan admitted, surprising himself with his own honesty. Daisy extended her hand to him, which he took without hesitation. It was as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "How about we try to figure out who we are together?" she suggested, her blue eyes shining with a determination that Ryan found captivating. "Together," he repeated, gently squeezing her hand. Outside the room, Patricia walked down the hallway when a colleague approached her. "Pat, did you see the files for the patients in room 304? "Yes. Why?" "I'm checking the records and there's something strange here. The guy was admitted as Ryan Vanderbilt, but the girl, she was admitted as Daisy Williams. Single." Patricia stopped in the middle of the hallway, turning pale. "What?" "Yeah, it looks like there was a mix-up in admission. They're not married. They didn't even know each other before the accident. His file mentions he was arguing with a woman in the car before the crash, but..." The two nurses looked at each other, realizing the magnitude of the mistake that had been made. In room 304, Daisy and Ryan continued holding hands, looking out the window and imagining what their life together would be like, completely unaware that just 3 days before, they were two complete strangers who deeply hated each other. 2 days later, Daisy stood in the doorway of what was supposedly their home at 1247 Oak Street, clutching Ryan's arm for support. The modest 2-story house with its white picket fence and blooming rose garden looked like something straight out of a romantic movie, yet stepping inside felt like entering a stranger's life. "Honey, are you okay?" Ryan asked, noticing her hesitation. The endearment slipped out naturally, surprising them both. "Yeah, just... It's weird, you know? This should feel like home, but it's like visiting a museum of our life." Daisy stepped inside, her eyes scanning the cozy living room filled with photos of their supposed 5-year journey together. Ryan followed, equally bewildered. The house was immaculately organized, almost obsessively so. Every book was perfectly aligned, every cushion precisely placed. "Either I'm a neat freak, or we have a really good housekeeper," he muttered. Daisy giggled, picking up a framed photo from the mantel. It showed them at what looked like a carnival, both covered in cotton candy and laughing. "Look at us here. I look so carefree." "And I look..." Ryan peered over her shoulder. "Happy. Really happy." He frowned slightly. "Is it weird that I can't imagine myself being that relaxed?" "What do you mean?" Ryan gestured around the pristine living room. "Look at this place. Everything's so controlled, so perfect. But in all these photos, I seem different, looser somehow." Daisy wandered into the kitchen, where she found a note stuck to the refrigerator in her own handwriting. Ryan's favorite coffee, Colombian dark roast, 2 sugars, splash of vanilla creamer. Mine, hazelnut latte with extra foam. Love, D. "Found our coffee preferences," she called out, holding up the note. Ryan appeared in the doorway, reading over her shoulder. "You drew a little heart," he observed, and something warm flickered in his chest. "Apparently I'm the sappy type." Daisy opened the refrigerator, finding it well stocked but organized with military precision. Even the condiments were arranged by height. "Okay, you're definitely the organized one in this relationship." Speaking of which, Ryan pulled out his phone. "Dr. Harrison said we should try to maintain our normal routine. Maybe it'll help trigger memories." Daisy raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly is our normal routine?" Ryan scrolled through his phone's calendar app. "Well, according to this, you have yoga class on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. and I have a board meeting at Vanderbilt Industries every Thursday at 2 p.m. He looked up, surprised. "Apparently I run some kind of company." "Vanderbilt Industries." Daisy whistled. "Fancy. And I do yoga. That actually sounds right. I feel like I'd enjoy yoga. There's more. We have date night every Friday, grocery shopping together on Saturdays, and..." He paused, a smile creeping across his face. "Apparently, we have pancake breakfast every Sunday. Your handwriting says Ryan makes the best blueberry pancakes in Portland." Daisy beamed. "You cook for me?" "Seems like it." Ryan felt an unexpected surge of pride. "Want to test that theory? It's Sunday. Are you sure you remember how?" "Only one way to find out." 30 minutes later, The kitchen looked like a flower bomb had exploded. Daisy sat on the counter, swinging her legs and laughing as Ryan struggled with what appeared to be the world's most complicated pancake batter. "I think you might have oversold your cooking skills in whatever life we had before," she teased, watching him fish eggshells out of the mixture. "Hey, this is harder than it looks," Ryan protested, but he was laughing too. Maybe muscle memory takes longer to return than emotional memory. Emotional memory? Ryan paused his whisking, looking at her seriously. "Don't you feel it? When I look at you, when we laugh together, it's like my heart remembers you even if my brain doesn't." Daisy's breath caught. "Yeah," she whispered. "I feel it too. It's like coming home to someone I've never met." They stared at each other for a moment, the air thick with something neither could name. Then the smoke detector started blaring. "The pancakes!" Ryan spun around to find the first batch burning black on the griddle. "So much for Sunday tradition," Daisy laughed, hopping down to help fan the smoke detector. "Cereal?" Ryan suggested sheepishly. "Cereal sounds perfect." As they sat at their small dining table sharing a bowl of Lucky Charms, apparently Ryan's guilty pleasure, according to a grocery list in his handwriting, Daisy studied the man across from her. In the photos, he always looked so serious, so composed. But right now, with flour in his hair and marshmallow cereal stuck to his shirt, he seemed almost boyish. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Shoot. In all these photos, you look so different, more relaxed. But since we've been awake, you seem kind of tense, like you're trying to control everything." Ryan considered this, unconsciously straightening in his chair. "I guess I do feel like I need to have everything figured out. Like I should be taking care of you, making sure everything's perfect. But what if perfect isn't what I fell in love with?" Daisy reached across the table and took his hand. "What if I fell in love with the guy who burns pancakes and gets flustered by smoke detectors?" Ryan looked down at their joined hands. "You really think that's possible?" "I think," Daisy said, standing up and tugging his hand, "we should find out. Come on." "Where are we going?" "To make new memories, or old ones." "Whatever," she grinned. "Let's go be the people in these photos." An hour later, they were at the Portland Saturday market, completely lost, but having the time of their lives. Daisy had insisted they leave all their notes and calendars at home and just follow their hearts. "Try this." Daisy appeared at Ryan's side with a cup of something that smelled like cinnamon and adventure. "What is it?" "I have no idea, but it smells amazing." She took a sip and her face lit up. "Oh wow, it's like Christmas in a cup." Ryan tried it and immediately made a face. "That's really sweet. You don't like it?" "I think I'm more of a coffee person," he admitted. Daisy studied him for a moment, then broke into a mischievous grin. "You know what? I think the old Ryan would have pretended to like it to make me happy." "And the new Ryan?" "The new Ryan is honest. I like that." She linked her arm through his. "Come on, let's find you some coffee that doesn't taste like liquid candy canes." As they wandered through the market, something magical happened. Ryan's shoulders relaxed. His laugh became more frequent and genuine. Daisy found herself being more spontaneous than she thought possible, pulling him toward street musicians and quirky art booths. At a photo booth decorated with vintage props, Daisy grabbed Ryan's hand. "Come on, let's add a new picture to our collection." "I don't know." Ryan hesitated. "Please, for our fake memories?" She batted her eyelashes dramatically. Ryan couldn't resist her smile. "Fine, but I'm not wearing the cowboy hat." "The cowboy hat is non-negotiable." 4 photos later, they emerged laughing and slightly dizzy from the flashing lights. The pictures were ridiculous. Ryan in an oversized cowboy hat looking mortified, Daisy with a fake mustache, both of them cracking up in the final shot. "These are terrible," Ryan said, but he was grinning. "These are perfect," Daisy corrected, tucking the photo strip into her purse. "This is us figuring out who we are." As the sun began to set, They found themselves sitting on a bench overlooking the Willamette River, sharing a bag of kettle corn and watching the boats drift by. Daisy? Thank you. She turned to look at him. For what? For making me feel like it's okay not to have all the answers. For the first time since I woke up, I feel like maybe I don't need to remember everything to be happy. Daisy felt her heart flutter. Ryan? Yeah? I think I'm falling in love with you all over again. The words hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Ryan reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle and sure. I think I'm falling in love with you for the first time, he whispered. As they leaned toward each other, both of them felt like they were exactly where they belonged, even if they had no idea how they'd gotten there. Meanwhile, back at Portland General Hospital, Nurse Patricia stared at the corrected medical files on her desk, her coffee growing cold as she wrestled with an impossible decision. The longer she waited, the harder it would become to tell them the truth. But seeing how happy they looked when they left the hospital, she picked up the phone to call Dr. Harrison, then set it down again. Some mistakes, she thought, might be the best things that ever happened to people. 1 week into their rediscovered marriage, Daisy Williams, or rather, Daisy Vanderbilt, as she was learning to think of herself, stood in front of Ryan's closet, completely bewildered. Everything was arranged by color, season, and occasion, with the precision of a high-end boutique. Even his ties were organized in a way that would make a military sergeant weep with pride. "Honey," she called out, holding up 2 nearly identical navy blue suits. "Do you have a preference for your board meeting today? Or should I just pick the one that's more navy?" Ryan appeared in the doorway, still dripping from his shower with a towel around his waist. For a moment, Daisy forgot all about suit selection as her eyes traveled across his surprisingly well-defined chest. "Sorry, what?" she managed, her cheeks flushing pink. Ryan noticed her stare and felt his own face heat up. Even after a week of sharing a house, they'd been sleeping in separate bedrooms, a mutual, unspoken agreement that felt both respectful and frustrating. "The suits," he said, clearing his throat. "Either one is fine. I apparently have very strong opinions about organization, but very little creativity in fashion." Daisy laughed, hanging both suits back up. "You know what's funny? I found my own closet yesterday. It's like a rainbow exploded in there. Complete chaos, but somehow I know exactly where everything is." "Opposites attract, I guess," Ryan said, then paused. "Do you think that's what happened with us? That we balance each other out?" Before Daisy could answer, Ryan's phone buzzed with a text. His expression darkened as he read it. "What's wrong?" Daisy asked. "It's from someone named Marcus. He says, and I quote, 'Hope the accident knocked some sense into you about the Williams situation. Board meeting today. Be ready to make the final decision.'" Ryan looked up, confused. "Williams? That's your maiden name, right?" A chill ran down Daisy's spine. "What Williams situation?" "I have no idea, but it sounds like I'm supposed to make some kind of decision about it at today's meeting." Ryan ran his hand through his damp hair. "God, I hate not remembering my own life. What if I make the wrong choice about something important?" Daisy walked over and straightened his shoulders, looking directly into his eyes. "Then we'll figure it out together. That's what married couples do, right?" Ryan smiled, some of the tension leaving his face. "Right. Together." 2 hours later, Ryan sat in the sleek conference room of Vanderbilt Industries, trying to look like he belonged there. The building was impressive, 30 floors of glass and steel in downtown Portland, but being inside it felt like wearing someone else's expensive suit. "Ryan, glad to see you're feeling better," said a man who introduced himself as Marcus Webb, apparently Ryan's business partner and best friend. Marcus was everything Ryan felt he should be: confident, polished, and completely at ease in the corporate environment. "Thanks, Marcus. Still getting my bearings, but I'm ready to get back to work." "Good, because we need to settle this Williams environmental consulting situation today. The board's been patient, but we can't keep stalling. Ryan's stomach dropped. Williams Environmental Consulting. Daisy's maiden name couldn't be a coincidence. Remind me of the details, Ryan said carefully. Marcus pulled out a thick folder. Small environmental consulting firm. They've been a thorn in our side for 2 years, blocking our Riverside development project with lawsuit after lawsuit. Frivolous claims about wetland preservation and endangered species habitat. He leaned forward conspiratorially. Between you and me, their lead consultant is this bleeding heart activist type. Real piece of work, Daisy Williams. Blonde, stubborn as a mule, thinks she can save the world one tree at a time. Ryan felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Daisy Williams? Oh, right. The accident probably scrambled some details. She's the one who caused all this mess. Actually, wasn't she the one in the car with you during the crash? I still can't believe you were giving her a ride that night. A ride? Marcus lowered his voice. The night you were going to serve her with the final papers to cease and desist, remember? You were being way too nice about it, if you ask me. Should have just crushed her company from the start instead of trying to reason with her. Ryan's mind raced. The woman he was falling in love with, the woman he'd been married to for supposedly 5 years, was actually his business enemy. The person he'd been trying to destroy professionally. Marcus, I need to see everything we have on Williams Environmental Consulting. Every file, every email, every legal document. Planning to finish what we started? Good. The Riverside project is worth $50 million to us, Ryan. We can't let some tree hugger with a biology degree stand in our way. For the next hour, Ryan pored over files that painted a picture of a 2-year corporate war. On one side, Vanderbilt Industries, wanting to build luxury condos on a piece of Riverside property. On the other, Williams Environmental Consulting, specifically Daisy Williams, who had documented that the land was home to a rare species of salmon and several endangered bird species. The emails between Ryan before the accident and Daisy were particularly brutal. He'd called her economically naive and professionally incompetent. She'd called him a soulless corporate shark and environmental terrorist. Their final email exchange, from the day before the accident, was especially harsh. From Ryan.Vanderbilty, Vanderbilt Industries, com, to D. Williams, WilliamsEnvironmental.com. Subject, final warning. Ms. Williams, your continued interference with the Riverside project ends now. Meet me at Riverside Drive tonight at 8 p.m. to discuss your surrender, or I'll see you in court Monday morning with a lawsuit that will destroy your little company permanently. Stop playing games. You've lost. Ryan Vanderbilt. From D. Williams, WilliamsEnvironmental.com to Ryan.Vanderbilty, Vanderbilt Industries. Com. Subject, RE. Final warning. Mr. Vanderbilt, I'll be there at 8 p.m., but not to surrender. I'll be there to tell you exactly what I think of you and your environmental destruction to your face. Some things are more important than money, though I don't expect you to understand that concept. The salmon were here first. Daisy Williams, P.S. See you in court. I'm not afraid of you. Ryan stared at the emails, his heart sinking. They hadn't been married. They'd hated each other. And somehow, during what was probably a screaming match in his car during a rainstorm, they'd crashed and lost their memories. Now he was in love with her, and she had no idea who he really was. Meanwhile, across town, Daisy was having her own revelations. She'd decided to visit her old apartment, the address listed on her driver's license, to see if anything there might trigger memories. What she found was a small, cluttered studio apartment filled with environmental science textbooks, protest signs, and photos of her hugging trees, releasing rescued birds, and standing defiantly in front of construction sites. On her desk, she found business cards. Daisy Williams, environmental consultant, protecting tomorrow today. Environmental consultant, she murmured to herself. No wonder I felt drawn to that recycling program at the grocery store. She opened her laptop and found dozens of files related to something called The Riverside Project. As she read through her own research notes, emails, and legal documents, a pit formed in her stomach. Vanderbilt Industries, Ryan's company. They were trying to destroy a protected wildlife habitat to build condos, and she'd been fighting him. Her phone rang, startling her from the devastating revelation. It was Ryan. "Hey, beautiful." His voice was strained. "How's your day going?" "It's complicated," she said, staring at a photo of herself chained to a tree in protest. "Ryan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course. What is it?" "What do you know about the Riverside Project?" The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that Daisy thought the call had dropped. "Ryan, are you there?" "I'm here," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Daisy, we need to talk. Can you meet me at Riverside Drive? There's something you need to see." "Riverside Drive? Why there?" "Because," Ryan said, closing his eyes in the conference room as Marcus watched him curiously, "I think that's where our real story begins." An hour later, they stood together on the banks of the Willamette River at the proposed construction site. The land was beautiful, old-growth trees, wildflower meadows, and crystal-clear water where salmon jumped in the late afternoon sun. "It's gorgeous here," Daisy breathed, and Ryan noticed how her whole body seemed to relax in the natural setting. "Daisy," Ryan began, his hands shaking as he pulled out the folder of emails and legal documents, "I found out some things today. About us. About who we really are." She turned to look at him, and he saw in her eyes that she already knew. "We're not married, are we?" she said quietly. "No, we're not. And we didn't like each other very much. We hated each other, actually." Ryan's voice cracked. "We were enemies, Daisy. I was trying to destroy your company. You were trying to stop my development project. This place," he gestured around them, "this is what we were fighting about." Daisy walked to the water's edge, hugging herself. "I remember pieces now. Not everything, but I remember being so angry. Angrier than I'd ever been in my life." She turned back to him. "I remember thinking you were everything wrong with the world. And I thought you were naive and unrealistic." Ryan took a step toward her. "But Daisy, that was before we knew each other. Before we fell in love with people who don't exist," she finished. "No." Ryan's voice was firm. "Before we fell in love with who we really are. Don't you see? Without all the history, all the assumptions and prejudices, we found each other. The real us." "The real us?" Daisy laughed bitterly. "Ryan, you run a company that destroys places like this. I'm an environmental activist who's probably never made more than $30,000 in a year. We're not just different, we're incompatible. Are we? Look around, Daisy. Really look." She followed his gaze and gasped. Posted throughout the construction site were signs that read, "Construction delayed pending environmental review by order of Vanderbilt Industries." "You stopped the project," she whispered. "Yesterday, before I knew any of this. I took one look at this place and couldn't imagine destroying it." Ryan moved closer to her. "That's not the old me talking, Daisy. That's who I am now, who you helped me become." Tears filled her eyes. "But how do we know what's real? How do we know if what we feel is love, or just gratitude for not being alone?" Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out the strip of photos from the market, the ridiculous ones with the cowboy hat and fake mustache. "Because of this. Because when I look at you, I don't see my business enemy or my fake wife. I see the woman who makes me laugh at photo booths and burns pancakes with me and thinks Christmas-flavored drinks are the greatest invention in human history." Daisy looked at the photos, then back at the beautiful land around them. "What happens now?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "But I know I don't want to go back to being the person who could destroy something this beautiful. And I don't want to lose the person who showed me I could be better." Even if it means giving up a $50 million project? Especially then. Daisy stared at him for a long moment, then walked over and took his hand. You know this is crazy, right? Two people who hated each other a week ago standing here talking about love and environmental conservation? Completely insane, Ryan agreed, squeezing her hand. Good, she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him softly. I've always liked crazy better than boring. As the sun set over the Willamette River, two people who had been enemies discovered that sometimes the best love stories begin with the worst first impressions. But even as they held each other, both wondered the same thing. What would happen when their memories fully returned? 3 days after their revelation at Riverside Drive, Daisy sat cross-legged on the floor of Ryan's pristine living room, surrounded by environmental impact studies, legal documents, and what appeared to be every coffee shop napkin she'd ever scribbled notes on. Her laptop balanced precariously on a stack of books titled things like Corporate Environmental Responsibility and Sustainable Development in the 21st Century. Okay, she said, pushing her reading glasses up her nose. When had she started wearing reading glasses? So if we can prove that the salmon spawning grounds extend another 50 meters upstream, and cross-reference that with the migratory bird patterns from 2018 to 2023. Daisy, Ryan interrupted gently from the kitchen doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. You've been at this for 14 hours straight. Take a break. Can't break. Too much to do. She accepted the coffee without looking up. Did you know that your company's environmental impact assessment completely ignored the seasonal nesting patterns of the great blue heron? Completely ignored them, Ryan. Ryan couldn't help but smile. Over the past 3 days, he'd watched Daisy transform from the carefree woman who burned pancakes and took ridiculous photos into a passionate environmental warrior. Her dedication was impressive, if slightly terrifying. I'm learning that there's a lot my company ignored, he said, settling on the floor beside her. Marcus has been calling me every hour asking when I'm going to come to my senses about the project. And what do you tell him? That I'm conducting a more thorough review of our environmental impact. Ryan picked up one of her reports. Though I don't think he expected me to hire the opposition as a consultant. Daisy finally looked up from her laptop, grinning. Technically, you didn't hire me. I'm working pro bono for my fake husband. There's probably an ethics violation in there somewhere. Probably several, Ryan agreed, leaning over to kiss her temple. But I like having you as my environmental conscience. You're what now? Nothing, Ryan said quickly. But Daisy had caught something in his tone. Ryan James Vanderbilt, she said, using her stern voice that he was beginning to recognize. What aren't you telling me? Ryan sighed, pulling out his phone. I got a call from Dr. Harrison this morning. He wants to see us tomorrow for a follow-up appointment. That's good, right? Check our progress? Maybe, or maybe... Ryan hesitated. Daisy, what if our memories come back? All of them? The question hung in the air like smoke. It was the fear neither of them had wanted to voice over the past few days, that remembering their past might mean losing their present. Then we deal with it, Daisy said finally. Together. But what if the old Ryan comes back? The one who didn't care about salmon or herons or... He gestured around the chaos of her research. Any of this? Daisy set down her laptop and turned to face him fully. The old Ryan is gone, don't you think? I mean, look at what you've done in the past week. You halted a $50 million project to protect wildlife. You've spent 3 days helping me research environmental law instead of going to your office. You make terrible pancakes and wear ridiculous cowboy hats in photo booths. She smiled softly. That's not the old Ryan. That's just Ryan. And what about the old Daisy? The one who thought I was the enemy. She wasn't wrong, Daisy said honestly. The old you probably was her enemy. But the current you? The one who brings me coffee at 2 a.m. and listens to me ramble about bird migration patterns? She leaned forward and kissed him gently. I'm pretty sure she'd fall in love with him too. Their moment was interrupted by Ryan's phone buzzing with a text. Then another, then several more in rapid succession. Marcus, Daisy asked. Ryan frowned at his phone, No, I don't recognize the number. He read the messages aloud. Ryan, it's Sarah from Williams Environmental. Daisy's business partner. We need to talk. Urgent. I know you're with her. The board is meeting tomorrow to vote on selling the company. She needs to know. Daisy went very still. Sarah? You know her? I think so. Sarah Chen, my business partner. Oh God, Ryan, I forgot I had a business partner. Daisy scrambled for her phone. I haven't called her, haven't checked in. She must think I'm dead. Call her now. Daisy dialed the number with shaking hands. Sarah picked up on the first ring. Daisy, Jesus Christ, where have you been? I've been going out of my mind. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I was in an accident, and I've had some memory issues. Memory issues? Daisy, the board is meeting tomorrow morning to vote on Hartwell Industries' buyout offer. Without you here to vote against it, they're going to sell the company. Daisy's face went white. Hartwell Industries? Our biggest competitor. They want to buy us out and shut us down, Daisy. All of our environmental projects, all of our clients, gone. They're offering the board members enough money to make them forget they ever cared about conservation. Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. Daisy, what's wrong? She covered the phone. My company is about to be sold to our competitors, tomorrow morning. Into the phone, she said, Sarah, I'll be there. What time? 9 a.m. Daisy, there's something else. Hartwell Industries? They're a subsidiary of Vanderbilt Industries. Daisy's phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. Ryan could hear Sarah's voice still talking, but Daisy wasn't listening anymore. Ryan, she said slowly, is Hartwell Industries part of your company? Ryan's mind raced. Marcus had mentioned several subsidiary companies, but Ryan's memory gaps made it hard to keep track. I don't know. Let me call Marcus. Don't. Daisy's voice was sharp. Don't call him yet. Why not? Because if Hartwell is trying to buy my company, and Hartwell is part of Vanderbilt Industries, then this whole thing, stopping the Riverside project, helping me with my research, it could all just be a way to keep me distracted while your company destroys my business. Daisy, no, that's not what this is, isn't it? She stood up, pacing now. Think about it, Ryan. What better way to neutralize your environmental opposition than to make them fall in love with you? Keep me busy playing house while your subsidiary company buys out my board of directors. That's insane. I didn't even know about Hartwell until 30 seconds ago. But the old Ryan might have. The Ryan who sent me that email calling me economically naive and threatening to destroy my company. Daisy's eyes filled with tears. What if all of this, our entire relationship, is just some elaborate corporate manipulation that I'm too stupid to see? Daisy, listen to me. Ryan stood and tried to take her hands, but she pulled away. I don't care what the old Ryan planned or didn't plan. I care about you, about us, about protecting that land and those salmon and whatever else you think is worth saving. Prove it. What? Prove it. If Hartwell Industries is part of your company, stop the buyout. Call them off. I don't even know if I have that power. Then find out. Daisy grabbed her jacket and keys. I have to go to my company. I have to try to save what's left of it. I'm coming with you. No. She turned at the door. Ryan, I need you to figure out what's real here. Is this relationship real? Or am I just the latest victim of corporate espionage with amnesia? You know what's real, Daisy. What we have is real. Then prove it. Stop Hartwell Industries. Show me that the man I've fallen in love with isn't just another version of my enemy. After she left, Ryan stood alone in his living room, surrounded by Daisy's environmental research and empty coffee cups. For the first time since waking up in the hospital, he felt like the old Ryan, lost, angry, and completely out of control. He picked up his phone and called Marcus. Ryan, finally. Please tell me you're ready to be reasonable about this Riverside nonsense. Marcus, I need to ask you about Hartwell Industries. Hartwell? What about them? Are they one of our subsidiaries? Of course they are. We acquired them 2 years ago. Why? Ryan closed his eyes. What are they doing tomorrow morning? Oh, that. Finalizing the Williams environmental buyout. Brilliant strategy, by the way. Much more elegant than crushing them in court. Buy them out, shut them down, and the Riverside project can move forward without any more environmental interference. Marcus chuckled. Though I have to say, your method of keeping Daisy Williams distracted while we maneuvered into position was inspired. Dating the enemy? Never would have thought of that myself. What do you mean, my method? Come on, Ryan. Taking her out the night before we made our offer to her board? Getting her so emotionally compromised that she hasn't been paying attention to her business? It was risky, but it worked perfectly. Ryan felt sick. Marcus, we didn't plan this. The accident. The memory loss. Right, the accident. Lucky break, really. Gave us time to position the buyout while she was otherwise occupied. Call off the Hartwell deal. What? Ryan, are you feeling okay? This deal is worth everything to us. The Riverside project, the Williams Company elimination, the... Call it off, Marcus, now. Ryan, I don't know what's gotten into you, but you're not thinking clearly. Maybe you should see Dr. Harrison again. This whole accident has obviously affected your judgment more than we thought. Ryan hung up and immediately called Dr. Harrison's office, but got voicemail. He tried Daisy's phone, but it went straight to voicemail too. At Williams Environmental Consulting, Daisy sat in a conference room with Sarah Chen and 3 board members, all of whom looked extremely uncomfortable. Daisy, said board member Robert Kim, we're glad you're feeling better, but the Hartwell offer is incredibly generous. It would ensure financial security for all of us. And it would destroy everything we've worked for, Daisy shot back. This company exists to protect the environment, not to sell out to the highest bidder. But Daisy, said board member Jennifer Walsh, Hartwell has assured us that they'll continue our environmental mission under their larger corporate umbrella. Sarah snorted. Right, because large corporations are so famous for their environmental priorities. The vote is in 1 hour, Robert said. We need your decision, Daisy. Are you voting to accept or reject the Hartwell offer? Daisy looked around the table at people she'd trusted, people she'd worked with for years to build something meaningful. I need to make a phone call first. She stepped outside and dialed Ryan's number. Daisy, thank God, I figured it out. Marcus told me everything. The buyout is real, and apparently the old me was using our relationship to distract you while Hartwell positioned themselves. Daisy felt her heart break a little. So it was all fake. No, Daisy, the old plan was fake, but what we have is real. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to call off the Hartwell deal right now. Can you do that? I don't know, but I'm going to try. I'm the majority shareholder in Vanderbilt Industries, which means I should be able to override Marcus on the subsidiary decisions. And if you can't? Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then I'll resign from my own company. Daisy, I'm not going to be the person who destroys what you've built. Not anymore. Ryan, I love you. Not the fake married version of you. Not the distraction version of you. The real you. The woman who chains herself to trees and knows everything about salmon migration patterns and makes terrible coffee but perfect pancake disasters. Despite everything, Daisy smiled. I love you too. But Ryan, even if you stop the buyout, what happens when our memories fully return? What if we go back to hating each other? Then we'll deal with that too. But right now, in this moment, I choose you. I choose us. I choose the salmon. You choose the salmon? I'm learning to prioritize environmental conservation in my relationship decisions. Daisy laughed through her tears. Okay, stop the buyout. I'll handle my board. And Ryan? Yeah? If this works out, you're making me pancakes every Sunday for the rest of our lives. Deal. Even if they're terrible. Especially if they're terrible. As they hung up, both Daisy and Ryan felt something they hadn't experienced since waking up in the hospital. Hope that their future might be something they chose, rather than something that happened to them. But first, they had to save her company, stop his company, and figure out how to love each other despite everything they were about to remember. The emergency board meeting at Vanderbilt Industries was unlike anything the company had ever seen. Ryan sat at the head of the massive conference table, facing 12 board members who looked like they were witnessing their CEO having a complete mental breakdown. Marcus paced behind them, occasionally throwing his hands up in exasperation. "Let me get this straight," said board member Patricia Blackwood, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses. "You want to cancel the Hartwell Industries acquisition of Williams Environmental Consulting, a deal worth $50 million to us, because you've fallen in love with Daisy Williams?" "That's a gross oversimplification. But essentially, yes," Ryan replied calmly. "The same Daisy Williams who has cost us millions in legal fees and project delays?" added board member Thomas Griffin. "The same Daisy Williams who called you a soulless corporate shark in writing?" Marcus interjected from across the room. "She wasn't wrong," Ryan said, earning several shocked stares. "Look, I know this seems sudden, but I've spent the last 2 weeks really examining our environmental practices, and frankly, we've been on the wrong side of history." 2 weeks? Marcus laughed bitterly. "Ryan, you've built this company over 10 years on the principle of maximizing shareholder value. You don't just change core business philosophy because of a head injury. Maybe the head injury helped me see things clearly for the first time." Board member David Chen leaned forward. "Ryan, we appreciate your newfound environmental consciousness, but we have fiduciary duties to our shareholders. The Riverside project and the Williams acquisition are part of a larger strategic plan that's been in development for 2 years. Then we develop a new strategic plan." "Based on what?" Patricia asked. "A relationship with someone who was your enemy until 2 weeks ago?" Ryan stood up, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked downtown Portland. In the distance, he could see the Willamette River, and he thought about the salmon and the herons and the woman who'd taught him to care about both. "Based on the fact that some things are more important than profit margins," he said finally, "cancel the Hartwell deal, kill the Riverside project. And if the board wants to remove me as CEO for making these decisions, then that's your choice." The room erupted in heated discussions. Marcus threw up his hands and stalked out, muttering something about amnesia-induced insanity. But Ryan didn't move from the window. For the first time since waking up in the hospital, he felt completely certain about a decision. His phone buzzed with a text from Daisy. "Board meeting at WEC in progress. Fighting for my company. Hope you're fighting for yours. P.S. I love you, even if you are a corporate shark." Ryan smiled and texted back, "Corporate shark learning to swim upstream. Love you too. P.S. Save me some terrible coffee for later." Meanwhile, at Williams Environmental Consulting, Daisy faced her own version of corporate warfare. The small conference room felt cramped with 5 people arguing around a table covered in financial documents and coffee-stained environmental reports. "Daisy, be reasonable," Robert Kim pleaded. "The Hartwell offer would pay off all our debts, give us each a generous severance package, and ensure our research gets continued under a larger organization." "Under an organization that wants to destroy everything we've worked to protect," Daisy countered. "Robert, you got into environmental consulting because you wanted to make a difference. Does this feel like making a difference?" Sarah Chen, the only board member firmly in Daisy's corner, spoke up. "The Hartwell offer includes a clause that would transfer all our client contracts to them, including the Riverside project opposition. They could simply drop that case the day after the acquisition. But they've promised to maintain our environmental mission," Jennifer Walsh insisted. "They've promised a lot of things," Daisy said, pulling out her laptop. "But I spent the morning researching Hartwell Industries' track record. In the past 5 years, they've acquired 12 small environmental firms. Want to know how many are still operating with their original environmental mission?" "How many?" Robert asked reluctantly. 0. They buy the companies, absorb the contracts, drop any cases that conflict with their parent company's interests, and dissolve the organizations within 6 months. The room fell silent. Their parent company, Sarah said slowly, is Vanderbilt Industries. Yes, it is. Daisy took a deep breath. Which brings me to something else I need to tell you all. I've been involved with Ryan Vanderbilt. Involved how? Jennifer asked. Romantically involved. The room exploded in shocked voices and accusations. Robert stood up so quickly his chair fell over. Daisy, please tell me you didn't compromise our entire company for a relationship. It's not like that, Daisy protested. But even as she said it, she wondered if she was being naive. Our relationship started after the accident, after we both lost our memories. Neither of us knew who the other was. How convenient, Jennifer said coldly. It wasn't convenient, it was complicated. Daisy felt tears threatening. Look, I know how this sounds, but Ryan is trying to stop the Hartwell deal right now. He's fighting his own board of directors to protect our company. And you believe him? Robert asked. I have to. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed Daisy's hand. Then let's vote. All in favor of accepting the Hartwell Industries buyout? Jennifer and Robert raised their hands immediately. Board member Kevin Martinez hesitated, then slowly raised his hand as well. All opposed? Daisy and Sarah raised their hands. The motion passes 3-2, Robert said formally. Williams Environmental Consulting accepts the Hartwell Industries acquisition offer. Daisy felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. You can't do this. This company is my life's work. And it'll continue under Hartwell, Jennifer said. But she wouldn't meet Daisy's eyes. No, it won't. And you know it. Daisy stood up, grabbing her jacket. But don't worry. When Hartwell shuts us down in 6 months and you're all looking for new jobs, remember that you chose money over principles. She was halfway to the door when her phone rang. Ryan's name appeared on the screen. Tell me you have good news, she answered. I stopped the Hartwell deal. Daisy's knees nearly buckled with relief. You did? I did. But Daisy, there's something else. Dr. Harrison called. He wants to see us immediately. He says it's urgent. How urgent? He says our memories are starting to return more rapidly than expected. Full recovery could happen within the next few hours. Daisy sank into a chair. The board voted to sell the company. What? But if I stopped Hartwell, they can still sell to someone else. The vote was to accept the principle of a buyout, not specifically the Hartwell deal. She laughed bitterly. So, congratulations. You saved my company from your company, but you couldn't save it from itself. Daisy, I'm coming to get you. We'll figure this out. Ryan, what if our memories come back and we go back to hating each other? What if everything we've felt was just temporary amnesia-induced insanity? Then we'll have had 2 beautiful weeks. That's not enough. No, Ryan agreed. It's not. But it's what we have right now. I'm 5 minutes away. Don't go anywhere. Daisy hung up and looked around the conference room where her colleagues were packing up their documents and avoiding eye contact with her. Sarah was the only one who approached. I'm sorry, Daisy. I tried. I know you did. Daisy hugged her friend. Sarah, whatever happens with my memories, whatever happens with Ryan, promise me you'll keep fighting for the environment. What do you mean, whatever happens with your memories? Before Daisy could answer, the room started spinning. Images flashed through her mind like a broken movie projector. Herself at 12 years old, watching her grandfather teach her about bird migration, college classes in environmental science, her first protest at 18, starting Williams Environmental with Sarah, meeting Ryan Vanderbilt for the first time at a city planning meeting. The memory hit her like a physical blow. Ryan Vanderbilt, in an expensive suit, standing at a podium and dismissing her environmental impact report as the uninformed opinions of an idealistic amateur. The rage she'd felt, the humiliation, the 2-year war that followed, and then the final confrontation, the night of the accident. She remembered getting in the car with him, both of them furious, both of them determined to have the last word. Daisy. Sarah's voice seemed to come from very far away. Daisy, are you okay? Daisy blinked, and suddenly she remembered everything. Her childhood, her education, her passion for environmental protection, her company, her life's work. And she remembered Ryan Vanderbilt, the real Ryan Vanderbilt. Cold, calculating, dismissive, and absolutely convinced that economic development was more important than environmental protection. The man she'd fallen in love with over the past 2 weeks wasn't the real Ryan Vanderbilt. The real Ryan Vanderbilt was her enemy, and she remembered with crystal clarity that she hated him. At that exact moment across town, Ryan Vanderbilt was getting out of his car in the Williams Environmental parking lot when his own memories came flooding back. His childhood in corporate boardrooms, learning business from his father, building Vanderbilt Industries into a Portland powerhouse. His first meeting with Daisy Williams, when she'd called his environmental assessment corporate propaganda designed to hide environmental destruction behind pseudo-scientific jargon. He remembered the 2-year battle, the lawsuits, the delays, the millions of dollars she'd cost his company. He remembered the final meeting, when he'd agreed to drive her to the Riverside site personally to prove that her environmental concerns were overblown. He remembered the argument in the car, her calling him a heartless, money-obsessed robot, him telling her she was a naive tree-hugger living in a fantasy world. He remembered the rain, the curve in the road, the impact. And he remembered that Daisy Williams was the most infuriating, stubborn, economically ignorant person he'd ever met. The amnesia was over. The real Ryan Vanderbilt was back. So why was he still in love with her? Ryan stood in the parking lot, caught between 2 versions of himself. The man he'd been for 27 years, and the man he'd become in the past 2 weeks. His memories told him that Daisy Williams was his enemy. His heart told him she was the love of his life. Inside the building, Daisy was having the same internal war. She remembered every slight, every argument, every reason she'd had to hate Ryan Vanderbilt. But she also remembered the past 2 weeks, his gentleness, his humor, his willingness to change, the way he looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. They walked toward each other in the lobby of Williams Environmental, 2 people caught between their past and their present, between who they used to be and who they'd become. Your memories came back, Ryan said. It wasn't a question. All of them, Daisy confirmed. You? Everything. They stood facing each other, and for a moment, neither spoke. The weight of their shared history hung between them like a wall. So, Daisy said finally, I guess this is where we go back to hating each other. Ryan studied her face, the face he'd fallen in love with, the face that belonged to someone he'd spent 2 years fighting. Is that what you want? I want to want that, Daisy said honestly. It would be so much easier if I could just go back to thinking you're a heartless corporate robot. And I want to go back to thinking you're an impractical idealist who doesn't understand how the real world works. But I can't. Ryan took a step closer. Because for 2 weeks, I got to see who you really are underneath all the anger and professional rivalry. And Daisy, the woman I fell in love with, isn't your amnesia personality. It's you. The real you. The one who cares so much about protecting the environment that she'll chain herself to trees. The one who's brilliant enough to find legal loopholes that billion-dollar companies can't get around. The one who's brave enough to fight corporations 50 times her size because she believes in something bigger than herself. Daisy felt tears welling up. Ryan, I remember hating you, he continued. But I also remember why I hated you. It wasn't because you were wrong. It was because you were right, and I was too proud and too set in my ways to admit it. And I remember hating you because you had the power to protect the environment, and you chose money instead. Daisy wiped her eyes. But the Ryan I've gotten to know these past 2 weeks, he chose differently. So what happens now? Daisy looked around the lobby of her company that had just voted to sell itself, her life's work that was about to be destroyed. Then she looked at Ryan, the man who had been her enemy and was now, what? Her lover, her partner, her hope for something better. Now, she said, We figure out how to save my company, protect the riverside habitat, and fall in love all over again. But this time, with our eyes wide open. Ryan smiled. The same smile that had made her heart flutter 2 weeks ago. But now she knew it belonged to Ryan Vanderbilt, corporate CEO and former environmental enemy. Together? He asked. Together, she agreed, taking his hand. Outside, Dr. Harrison sat in his car, watching through the lobby windows as his 2 former patients embraced. He'd been worried about what would happen when their memories returned, but seeing them choose each other despite their past gave him hope. Some love stories, he thought, are strong enough to survive the truth. 6 months later, Daisy Williams Vanderbilt stood at the edge of the Willamette River, watching a group of salmon make their way upstream to spawn. The morning mist clung to the water, and somewhere in the old-growth trees behind her, a great blue heron called out to its mate. She smiled, pulling her jacket tighter against the October chill. "Coffee delivery," came a familiar voice behind her. She turned to see Ryan approaching with 2 steaming cups and a slightly lopsided grin. His expensive suits had been replaced by jeans and a flannel shirt, though she noticed he still couldn't quite shake his habit of checking his phone every few minutes. "Please tell me you didn't try to make this yourself," she said, accepting the cup gratefully. "Hey, my coffee skills have improved dramatically. I only set off the smoke detector twice this week." "Progress," Daisy laughed, snuggling into his side as they watched the river together. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of changes, challenges, and surprisingly successful compromise. After their memories returned, they'd spent exactly 3 days figuring out how to merge their vastly different worlds, and then they'd gotten to work. "So," Ryan said, checking his watch, "ready for the big day?" "Ready as I'll ever be. You?" "Terrified, excited, and slightly nauseous. So, pretty much normal for a Tuesday." They were referring to the grand opening of the Riverside Environmental Education Center, a joint project between the newly reformed Vanderbilt Williams Environmental Development Company and the city of Portland. Where luxury condos were once planned to destroy the habitat, there now stood a beautiful visitor center dedicated to environmental education and wildlife preservation. The path to this moment hadn't been easy. Ryan's decision to stop the Hartwell acquisition and kill the Riverside project had cost Vanderbilt Industries $50 million and the resignation of half his board of directors, including Marcus Webb. The company had restructured completely, with Ryan bringing in new leadership focused on sustainable development and environmental responsibility. Daisy's company had been saved from the buyout when Ryan made a counteroffer, not to purchase Williams Environmental, but to merge with it. The newly formed Vanderbilt Williams Environmental Development Company now specialized in eco-friendly construction projects and environmental consulting. "Still can't believe your board went for the merger," Daisy said, sipping her coffee. "Once they saw the profit projections for sustainable development, they came around pretty quickly. Turns out there's a lot of money in saving the environment." "And here I thought you'd changed completely," Daisy teased. "I have changed. Now I make money and save salmon. It's called evolution." The sound of car doors slamming interrupted their peaceful morning. Dr. Harrison, Nurse Patricia, and Sarah Chen were walking toward them, along with what appeared to be half of Portland's city government and environmental community. "Ready for your close-up?" Sarah called out, gesturing to the Channel 8 news crew setting up their equipment. "As ready as 2 people who accidentally fell in love while having amnesia can be for a press conference about environmental preservation," Ryan replied. Dr. Harrison approached them with a warm smile. "How are you 2 feeling? Any lingering effects from the accident?" "Just the occasional headache when Ryan tries to explain corporate finance," Daisy said. "And I get dizzy whenever Daisy starts talking about migratory bird patterns," Ryan added. "But we're managing." Nurse Patricia, who had become something of a local celebrity after the story of her medical mistake went viral, shook her head in amazement. "I still can't believe it all worked out." "Patricia," Daisy said seriously, "I want you to know that what you did, accidentally telling us we were married, was the best mistake anyone ever made. Though maybe don't make it a regular practice," Ryan added. The hospital's liability insurance probably can't handle another case like ours. As the morning progressed, the Riverside Environmental Education Center filled with visitors, school children, city officials, and reporters. Ryan and Daisy found themselves giving tours, explaining the salmon habitat restoration project, and fielding questions about their unusual love story. "Mr. Vanderbilt," asked a reporter from the Oregonian, "6 months ago you were known as one of Portland's most aggressive developers. What changed?" Ryan looked at Daisy, then back at the reporter. "I learned that some things are more valuable than profit margins. And I learned that the most stubborn, infuriating environmental activist in Portland also happened to be the woman I was meant to spend my life with." "Ms. Williams," another reporter called out, "you spent 2 years fighting Mr. Vanderbilt's company in court. How do you go from enemies to business partners to married?" Daisy held up her left hand, showing off the simple platinum band Ryan had given her just a month before. "Sometimes you have to lose your memory to find your heart, and sometimes the person you think is your enemy is actually your perfect match. You just needed to get past all the preconceptions to see it." "Are you planning to have children?" asked a reporter from Channel 12. "We're planning to have pancakes," Ryan said, earning laughter from the crowd. "Everything else we'll figure out as we go." As the press conference wound down, Daisy and Ryan found themselves alone again by the river. The education center was bustling with families and school groups, but their favorite spot on the bank remained peaceful. "Any regrets?" Ryan asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "About which part? Losing my memory, falling in love with my enemy, merging our companies, or agreeing to marry someone who still can't make decent coffee?" "Any of it. All of it." Daisy leaned back against his chest, watching a family of ducks paddle by. "No regrets. Well, except maybe the part where we wasted 2 years hating each other when we could have been doing this." "I don't know," Ryan mused. "I think we needed those 2 years. I needed to be humbled enough to change, and you needed to be angry enough to fight for what you believed in. If we'd met under different circumstances, would we have pushed each other to become better people? You think I make you better? I think you make me everything I never knew I wanted to be." Daisy turned in his arms, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him softly. "For the record, you make terrible coffee. Your pancakes are a disaster, and you still organize your closet like you're expecting a military inspection. And I love every ridiculous, controlled, reformed corporate shark thing about you." "Reformed?" "Mostly reformed. You did check your stock portfolio 3 times during the press conference." "Old habits," Ryan said sheepishly. "Speaking of old habits," Daisy pulled out her phone. "Sarah sent me something this morning that I think you should see." She showed him a photo from the Portland Business Journal's website. It was a picture of Marcus Webb shaking hands with the CEO of a large development company with the headline, "Former Vanderbilt Industries executive joins Harrison Development, promises aggressive expansion policy." Marcus landed on his feet, Ryan observed. "He also issued a statement saying you've gone completely insane and that our marriage is proof that environmental extremists will use any tactic to infiltrate legitimate businesses." Ryan laughed. "Well, he's not entirely wrong. You did infiltrate my business, and my heart, and my pancake-making attempts. The pancakes were already a disaster before I came along." "Fair point." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, they walked hand in hand through the education center Ryan's money had built and Daisy's vision had designed. Children pressed their faces against the glass of the salmon viewing area, watching the fish navigate the specially constructed channels. Families read interpretive signs explaining the importance of riparian habitats and endangered species protection. "You know what the best part is?" Daisy said, stopping in front of a display about sustainable development practices. "What?" 6 months ago, if someone had told me that Ryan Vanderbilt would build an environmental education center on land he'd planned to turn into luxury condos, I would have checked them into the same hospital we woke up in. And if someone had told me that I'd fall in love with the woman who cost me $50 million and convinced me to turn a profitable development into a non-profit educational facility, I would have had them committed. So we're both crazy. Completely insane, Ryan agreed, spinning her around in the middle of the lobby as visitors smiled and took pictures. But happily insane. The best kind. As the day wound down and the last visitors left the education center, Daisy and Ryan found themselves back where their new story had begun, by the river, surrounded by the wildlife they'd learned to protect together. "One more question," Ryan said, pulling out a small wrapped package from his jacket pocket. "We're already married, Ryan. What else could you possibly be giving me?" "Open it." Inside the package was a small framed photo, one of the ridiculous pictures from their first week together, taken in the photo booth at the Portland Saturday Market. Ryan was wearing the oversized cowboy hat and looking mortified while Daisy sported a fake mustache and was clearly in the middle of a belly laugh. "I thought we should have at least one picture from when we were fake married to go with all our pictures from being real married," he explained. "It's perfect," Daisy said, tears threatening again. "Absolutely ridiculous and perfect. Just like us?" Just like us. As the sun set over the Willamette River, two people who had found love in the most unlikely circumstances stood together, watching the salmon swim upstream and the herons nest in the trees they'd saved. Their story had begun with a mistake, grown through deception, and flourished in truth. Sometimes, they reflected, the best love stories are the ones that shouldn't work but do anyway. And sometimes, losing your memory is the only way to find your heart. "Hey, Ryan? Yeah? Tomorrow's Sunday. Pancake day?" "Pancake day, but this time I'm cooking." "Thank God. I was wondering when you'd take pity on us and end the pancake disaster tradition." "Oh no," Daisy grinned mischievously. "I said I was cooking. I didn't say I was any good at it." "I figure if we're going to have terrible pancakes, we might as well have them together." Ryan looked at his wife. His real wife, not his amnesia wife, not his fake wife, but the woman who had chosen to love him despite knowing exactly who he was, and realized that terrible pancakes sounded absolutely perfect. After all, the best love stories aren't about perfection. They're about choosing each other, again and again, burnt pancakes and all. The end.